Welcome back to Breakfast. Well, we almost got through the Easter break without any road deaths, but sadly in the past few minutes, police have confirmed a man has died following a crash on Good Friday. Maria Lovelock from Road Safety Education joins us now. Good morning, Maria. Any death is terrible, particularly over these holiday road periods, and when we thought we got through to 0 deaths this Easter holiday, how does even one death compare to where we've been over the past few years?
I think it's definitely a move in the right direction. It was pretty astounding when we thought we'd got to 0 this weekend, and my heart, goes out to the family of that motorcycle that died on Friday. But I mean, it's definitely an improvement from last year. I think it was 5 last year and 7 the year before. So it's definitely a move in the right direction.
We are on this Road to Zero plan. Is it realistic to expect that we'll ever get to 0 across a year, or is this something we should only be looking at for holiday periods?
Look, I think it is possible. I really believe that if the system is working, like we run our program called the RYDA program throughout New Zealand, so we educate about 18,500 students this year that are going through our program, and what we teach them is that they didn't make the statistics that they're walking into when it comes to the road trauma statistics that we see. So it's in their power to change it. And a lot of what we talk to them about is that most crashes come from a series of decisions. A lot of the time people are just driving tired, they're not putting their seatbelts on, they may be distracted or impaired in some way. And so there's absolutely hope that people can make better decisions through education and set themselves up for success.
So Marie, when we talk about all those things that lead to a crash, do we also see that a series of circumstances mean that we have a lower road toll some years? I know that a lot of roads were damaged or had roadworks this year. If you were trying to get up north, it took 3 hours. You weren't going at 100 k's or even 80. Things like that, you see bad weather, were there fewer cars on the road? Are there any of those sorts of factors that came into play this year?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I think it's, like I said, it's a system approach. I think people like to try and find the one silver bullet that's going to say this is what fixes it, but we really work in a safe system. So having lower speeds definitely reduces the severe outcomes that we see, and so due to Gabriel and events like that, we have got a lot of roadworks going on, so that would have had a part to play. But also, I think people maybe made better decisions. We had a bit of a warning that it was going to be a wet, horrible weekend, and so maybe people took that into account when they drove and wore their seatbelts and weren't tired and planned their trip, and maybe had a bit more patience and didn't take as many risks as well. So I'd like to think that.
Being a cycle rider, particularly around Auckland, I think is a pretty bold and can be sometimes quite a dangerous experience for them, because car drivers are perhaps not the most alert around people on 2 wheels necessarily. Do we see that the road toll is perhaps impacted by, we do have safer cars than we did 20 or 30 years ago? Roads are safer. Medical technology is better, so that if you are in a crash, you are more able to survive it. Those things also come into play if we're looking at this long-term trend.
Oh, 100%. I think, like I said, it's a system, like a safe system. So you have the pillars of the safe system are roads and roadsides, safer cars, speed. But I also think we need to remember that road users are part of that. So whenever you look at any kind of media comment, you'll get people who'll say, well, it's not the speed, it's the driver. And I do feel that we could invest more into education in New Zealand around road safety. I know that's sort of my wheelhouse and where I come from, but for the cost of a roundabout, we could pretty much educate every high school student in year 12.
What's that cost?
3.2 million. We could.
That's how much a roundabout costs?
Well, some are less. Some
I think
are
I'd
more.
rather money went on educating drivers.
Yeah, I mean, we could get our program out to every year 12 student if we had that sort of funding. So, but there's, that's just. So I think it's a good investment. I think it's an affordable investment to put more into the space, and it shouldn't be a this or that kind of conversation. Often we see we need to spend more on infrastructure, therefore we need to spend less on this. I think there should be more of everything in that system to get it to work properly.
You talk about road safety education. I do notice, and maybe it's because, the way we consume information has changed over time, but do I see less ads about road safety, or do I see less messaging around road safety because we've got closer to that target? It's sort of fallen off the back burner a bit?
I'm not in the education team at Waka Kotahi, but I think they do invest still a fair amount into advertising, but
you would argue we need more.
I think we need more in education, not necessarily advertising. I think they both go hand in hand, but I think education is one of the poor cousin of the safe system at the moment, and I would really like to see more investment in it because I think you do get really good bang for your buck.
And do you mean practical driver training, or is this a class or a course that you could do perhaps online?
I think both. I think we need to have people who are learning to drive with experts and enable people to learn to drive, and there's some great programs out there doing that. But also I think we're not just talking about drivers here. Like with our program, we target passenger behaviour. We target, speaking up when you're feeling unsafe.
Passenger behaviour. The old backseat driver, Maria. I'm not sure anyone wants to hear from me on that.
But it's also like, some of the crashes we saw, like the one we saw in Timaru a few years ago with those young people that involved in the crash. Did they ever feel enabled enough to speak up? Were they scared? So we talk to our young people about if you're in a situation where maybe the driver is speeding, perhaps use that as an example, how confident are you to speak up in that situation and ask them to slow down? And that can be really hard when you're a young person and it's someone you look up to or something like that. And so that's some of the stuff that we go through within our program. And I think, that covers, it's both. It's drivers and passengers and all road users, really.
Wise advice. Maria Lovelock from the Road Safety Education, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.